Libra hung in the void like a jewel suspended in darkness, its atmosphere shimmering faintly under the twin suns that bathed it in perpetual twilight. For decades, humanity had dreamed of finding such a world, a pristine expanse untouched by the scars of industrial greed. But dreams rarely come true without consequence. As the dropship descended toward the surface, Dr. Hannah Wolf adjusted her helmet, her breath fogging the visor momentarily. Beside her sat Ryan Cole, fingers dancing across holographic controls as he monitored descent protocols. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The weight of expectation pressed heavily enough already. When the ship finally touched down, the airlock hissed open, releasing a rush of recycled oxygen into the unknown. Hannah stepped out first, boots crunching against violet sand that sparkled unnaturally even in muted light. Her eyes scanned the horizon, where jagged spires jutted upward like broken teeth. Something felt off. Not dangerous necessarily, but wrong, like stepping into someone else's home uninvited. "Readings?" she asked over comms, voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. Ryan tapped furiously at his tablet. "Atmosphere's breathable, though I wouldn't recommend taking your helmet off anytime soon. Radiation levels are weird. They spike every few minutes without warning. And those spikes correlate with—" She trailed off, noticing movement out of the corner of her eye. A shadow flitted past one of the spires, gone before she could focus on it. "Correlate with what?" Ryan prompted, looking up now. "Nothing," Hannah muttered, shaking her head. "Let's set up camp before nightfall." But setting up camp proved harder than anticipated. Equipment malfunctioned repeatedly, forcing them to rely on manual overrides. By the time tents were erected and supplies unpacked, exhaustion gnawed at their resolve. That's when the whispers started. Faint at first, almost indistinguishable from static, but growing louder until they formed words in tongues neither scientist recognized. "What the hell is that?" Ryan demanded, spinning around with his scanner raised defensively. "I don't know," Hannah admitted, clutching her datapad tighter. "But I think we're being watched." Morning brought little relief. If anything, the tension only thickened as they ventured deeper into the alien terrain. Every step revealed new anomalies. Plants that pulsed faintly with bioluminescence, rocks etched with intricate carvings, and depressions in the ground that suggested massive footprints. Whatever lived here wasn't shy about leaving its mark. By midday, they reached the site of the largest structure yet. A monolithic tower half buried in the earth, its surface covered in glyphs identical to those found earlier. Hannah approached cautiously, running gloved fingers along the grooves. They were warm to the touch, vibrating slightly as if alive. "This isn't just architecture," she murmured, awestruck. "It's technology. Advanced tech integrated seamlessly with organic material." Ryan joined her, skepticism plain on his face. "You're saying aliens built this using some kind of bioengineering? Or maybe they are the bioengineering," Hannah countered. "Either way, we're dealing with something far beyond us." Their conversation was cut short by a sudden tremor. The ground shook violently, sending both sprawling onto their backs. Dust billowed everywhere, obscuring vision. When it cleared, a figure stood atop the ridge above them, a hulking silhouette framed by the glaring suns. Its body rippled like liquid metal, shifting shapes too quickly to comprehend. Then, as abruptly as it appeared, it vanished. Shaken but determined, Hannah and Ryan returned to base camp to regroup. Their findings painted a picture both thrilling and terrifying. Libra wasn't uninhabited. It was contested territory. Whoever, or whatever, had constructed those ruins still lingered nearby, watching silently from the shadows. That night, sleep eluded them. Instead, they pored over data, piecing together fragments of knowledge gleaned from the day's discoveries. One recurring theme emerged: references to a great schism between two dominant species, culminating in catastrophic conflict. "It's almost biblical," Ryan remarked dryly, leaning back in his chair. Good versus evil, creation versus destruction. Except there's no clear line between them, Hannah corrected. Both sides committed atrocities. Both sought dominance. Sound familiar? He frowned. Are you suggesting humans might share ancestry with either group? She hesitated, then nodded. I'm suggesting we might not be who we think we are. Unbeknownst to them, their words carried farther than intended. Deep below the surface, hidden chambers stirred to life, awakened by vibrations triggered by their very presence. Somewhere in the depths, ancient mechanisms hummed softly, preparing for activation. The hum beneath the surface grew louder with each passing hour, though Hannah and Ryan remained oblivious to its significance. They were too engrossed in decoding the artifact they had retrieved from the monolithic tower, a jagged shard of crystalline material that pulsed faintly with an inner light. The symbols etched into its surface shifted constantly, as if alive, responding to their proximity. This is unlike anything we've ever encountered, Hannah murmured, her voice tinged with both awe and unease. She ran a scanner over the shard, but the readings made no sense. Fluctuating energy signatures, patterns that defied known physics. It's not just communicating, it's interacting. Ryan leaned closer, his brow furrowed. You think this thing is trying to tell us something? Or maybe warn us? Before Hannah could respond, the shard emitted a sharp burst of light, blinding them momentarily. When their vision cleared, they found themselves staring at projections hovering in the air, holographic images of two distinct beings. One resembled a humanoid figure, tall and lithe, with elongated limbs and glowing eyes. The other was entirely alien, a serpentine creature with multiple appendages and a shimmering exoskeleton. These must be the two species, Hannah whispered, her heart racing. But why show us this now? As if in answer, the holograms began moving, depicting scenes of cooperation and conflict. At first, the two races appeared to coexist peacefully, working together to build structures like the one they discovered. But soon, the images turned violent, battles raging across barren landscapes, cities reduced to rubble, skies choked with smoke. They destroyed each other, Ryan said grimly, and Libra was ground zero. Hannah nodded, her mind racing. If these events were real, and she had no reason to doubt they were, then humanity might have more in common with these ancient civilizations than anyone realized. But before she could delve deeper into the implications, the ground trembled again, harder this time. Not now, Ryan muttered, grabbing onto the edge of the table for support. The tremors subsided as quickly as they began, leaving behind an eerie silence. Too quiet. When dawn broke, the camp was eerily undisturbed. Too undisturbed. Supplies remained untouched, equipment intact, yet something felt wrong. Hannah couldn't shake the sensation that they were being toyed with, like mice unaware of the cat lurking nearby. We need to move, she said abruptly, shoving supplies into a pack. What? Why? Ryan asked, startled by her urgency. Because whatever's out there knows we're here, and it's testing us. Her words sent a chill down his spine, but he didn't argue. Together, they dismantled the camp and set off toward the coordinates of another structure detected during their initial scans. The journey was grueling, the terrain unforgiving, but neither dared slow down. By mid-afternoon, they reached their destination. A sprawling complex half-submerged in the earth, its entrance marked by massive stone doors covered in the same glyphs as before. As they approached, the air seemed to thicken, pressing against their chests like an invisible weight. This place gives me the creeps, Ryan admitted, swallowing hard. You're not alone, Hannah replied, her voice steady despite the knot tightening in her stomach. They pushed open the doors, revealing a cavernous interior bathed in dim, pulsating light. Columns stretched upward, disappearing into shadow, while carvings adorned every surface. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, atop which rested another artifact, a sphere encased in a lattice of golden filaments. "It's beautiful," Hannah breathed, stepping closer. "And dangerous," Ryan added, instinctively raising his scanner. But it was too late. The moment Hannah touched the sphere, the entire chamber came alive. Lights flared, walls shifted, and a low, resonant hum filled the air. Then, from the shadows, figures emerged, not humanoid, not serpentine, but something in between. Their forms flickered, unstable, as if caught between states of existence. "Who are you?" Hannah demanded, her voice trembling. One of the figures stepped forward, its face, or what passed for a face, twisting into an expression of sorrow. "We are the remnants," it said, its voice echoing in their minds rather than their ears. "And you are the echoes." The words hung heavy in the air, their meaning unclear but undeniably ominous. Hannah took a cautious step back, her instincts screaming at her to run, but curiosity rooted her in place. Ryan, however, wasn't so restrained. "What do you mean, echoes?" he demanded, his hand gripping the plasma cutter at his side. The figure tilted its head, studying him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. "Your kind carries fragments of our essence. Fragments carried across the stars when all else was lost." Hannah's mind raced. Could it be true? Were humans descendants of these ancient beings, scattered across the galaxy after their civilization collapsed? If so, what did that mean for humanity's future or its past? "Why show yourselves now?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "Because the cycle begins anew," the figure replied cryptically, "and your presence here has awakened forces long dormant." Before either could respond, the chamber began to quake violently, the walls cracking as if under immense pressure. Dust rained down, choking the air, as the figures dissolved into mist, leaving Hannah and Ryan alone once more. "Time to go," Ryan shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the exit. They barely made it outside before the structure collapsed inward, sending shockwaves rippling across the landscape. Breathless and shaken, they stared at the ruins, unsure whether they had narrowly escaped death or merely delayed the inevitable. Back at their makeshift base, Hannah and Ryan pored over the data they had collected, desperate for answers. The artifacts, the holograms, the cryptic warnings. It all pointed to a larger narrative, one that tied humanity's origins to the fate of these ancient civilizations. But the more they uncovered, the more questions arose. If we're descended from them, does that mean we're doomed to repeat their mistakes? Ryan asked, breaking the tense silence. "I don't know," Hannah admitted, rubbing her temples. "But I do know one thing: we can't ignore this. Whatever's happening on Libra, it's bigger than us." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden alarm, a proximity alert triggered by movement near the perimeter. Grabbing their weapons, they cautiously approached the source, only to find a group of strangers standing just beyond the treeline. Dressed in sleek, militarized gear, they bore insignias neither recognized. "Who are you?" Hannah called out, her voice firm despite the fear clawing at her insides. The leader stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal sharp features and piercing eyes. "Dr. Wolf, Mr. Cole," he said smoothly. "We've been expecting you." The stranger's casual acknowledgement of their names sent a jolt of unease through Hannah and Ryan. How did these people know who they were? And what did they want? "We're not interested in visitors," Ryan said, raising his plasma cutter defensively. The man chuckled, seemingly unfazed. "Oh, but you misunderstand. We're not visitors. We're here because of you dash. Specifically, what you've uncovered." Hannah narrowed her eyes. "What do you know about the artifacts?" "More than you, clearly," the man replied, gesturing for his team to lower their weapons. "But perhaps introductions are in order. My name is Commander Voss, and I represent an organization tasked with protecting humanity's interests in the cosmos. What you found on Libra threatens that stability." "Protecting humanity?" Hannah echoed skeptically. Or controlling it? Voss smirked, clearly amused by her defiance. Let's just say we prefer order over chaos. Now, shall we discuss how you plan to proceed? Ryan exchanged a glance with Hannah, silently conveying his distrust. Something about Voss and his organization didn't sit right. We'll handle this our way, Hannah said firmly. Whatever secrets Libra holds, they belong to everyone, not just your agenda. Voss's smile faded, replaced by a cold, calculating gaze. Very well, but don't say I didn't warn you. With that, he signaled his team to retreat, vanishing into the forest as quickly as they had appeared. The encounter left Hannah and Ryan deeply unsettled. Who were these people and what did they truly want? More importantly, how far were they willing to go to get it? We can't trust them, Ryan said bluntly as they returned to camp. No argument here, Hannah agreed, pacing anxiously. But they're not our only problem. Whatever's buried beneath Libra's surface is waking up. And I don't think it cares whose side we're on. Her words proved prophetic. That night, the whispers returned, louder and more insistent than before. They seeped into their dreams, filling their minds with fragmented visions of war, destruction, and rebirth. When morning came, both woke drenched in sweat, haunted by memories that weren't theirs. We need to dig deeper, Hannah declared, determination burning in her eyes. If we don't understand what we're dealing with, none of us will survive. Ryan hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. All right, but if things go south, don't say I didn't warn you. Armed with tools and resolve, they ventured back toward the ruins, determined to uncover the truth, even if it cost them everything. The deeper they delved, the more the planet seemed to resist. Walls shifted without warning, trapping them in narrow corridors. Shadows danced along the edges of their vision, always just out of reach. And still, the whispers persisted, growing louder with each step until they became deafening. Finally, they reached the heart of the ruins, a vast chamber illuminated by a single beam of light descending from the ceiling. At its center lay a massive obelisk, covered in glyphs that pulsed in sync with the rhythm of their hearts. This is it, Hannah whispered, approaching cautiously. As she touched the obelisk, the chamber erupted in light, flooding the space with blinding brilliance. When it faded, they found themselves surrounded by the same figures they had encountered earlier. But this time, they were solid, tangible. You have awakened the legacy, one of them intoned, its voice reverberating through the chamber. Now choose. Embrace unity or succumb to division. Before either could respond, the ground split open, revealing a chasm filled with swirling energy. From it rose a third entity, one that defied description, a being of pure power and malice. The choice is yours, the figures said, fading away. And then silence. Stay tuned for the explosive conclusion. The entity before them was unlike anything Hannah and Ryan had ever seen or imagined. It pulsed with an energy that seemed to warp the very fabric of reality, its form shifting constantly between shapes both familiar and alien. Tentacles of light stretched outward, probing the chamber as if testing its boundaries. The air crackled with electricity, making their hair stand on end. What is that? Ryan stammered, his voice barely audible over the low hum emanating from the being. Hannah didn't answer immediately. Her mind raced, piecing together fragments of the holograms, the artifacts, and the cryptic warnings they'd encountered. This wasn't just some remnant of the past. It was a force born from the schism itself, a manifestation of the hatred and fear that had torn the two ancient civilizations apart. It's the cycle, she said finally, her voice trembling but resolute. This is what happens when division wins. This thing is the result of their war. The entity responded not with words, but with action. One of its tendrils lashed out, narrowly missing them as they dove for cover behind a crumbling pillar. The impact sent shockwaves through the chamber, causing chunks of rock to rain down around them. "We can't fight that," Ryan shouted, scrambling to his feet. "No," Hannah agreed, clutching the shard artifact tightly in her hand. "But maybe we don't have to." Her eyes darted around the chamber, searching for something, anything, that might offer a solution. Then she saw it. A pedestal near the obelisk, identical to the one they had found earlier. On it rested another sphere, this one glowing faintly with a warm, inviting light. "That's our answer," she said, pointing toward it. Ryan followed her gaze, skepticism warring with desperation. "You think that little ball is going to stop that dash?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But do you have a better idea?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "All right, let's do it." Reaching the pedestal proved more difficult than anticipated. The entity seemed aware of their intent, unleashing wave after wave of attacks designed to keep them pinned down. Tendrils of energy slashed through the air, carving deep gouges into the walls and floor. Dust filled the chamber, making it hard to breathe, let alone see clearly. "Stay low," Hannah called out as she ducked beneath another attack, her every movement fueled by adrenaline. They moved in bursts, using debris and shadows for cover whenever possible. Each step closer felt like an eternity, the weight of failure pressing down on them. But slowly, painstakingly, they reached the pedestal. Hannah grabbed the sphere without hesitation, feeling its warmth seep into her palm. For a moment, she thought she heard voices, soft, melodic tones that soothed her frayed nerves. Then the entity roared, its fury palpable as it turned its full attention toward them. "Now what?" Ryan yelled, raising his plasma cutter in a futile attempt to defend them. "Trust me," Hannah replied, holding the sphere aloft. She closed her eyes, focusing on the sensations coursing through her body. The rhythm of her heartbeat, the pulse of the artifact, the faint echo of unity whispered by the figures who had guided them here. As she concentrated, the sphere began to glow brighter, its light spreading outward in waves. The entity recoiled, its form flickering as if destabilized. "It's working," Ryan exclaimed, hope flaring within him despite the chaos surrounding them. But the entity wasn't done yet. With a final, desperate surge of energy, it launched itself directly at them, its massive form blotting out the light. Time seemed to slow as the entity bore down on them. Hannah stood her ground, channeling every ounce of willpower into the sphere. Its light intensified, forming a barrier that pushed back against the encroaching darkness. The clash between the two forces created a deafening roar, shaking the chamber to its core. Ryan shielded his eyes, unable to look away as the battle unfolded. "Hannah, you've got this," he shouted, though whether he believed it or was trying to convince himself remained unclear. The strain was evident on Hannah's face, sweat pouring down her temples as she fought to maintain control. Her arms trembled under the effort, but she refused to give up. Slowly, agonizingly, the sphere's light began to overpower the entity, forcing it to retreat inch by inch. Then, with a final burst of brilliance, the sphere unleashed a wave of energy so intense it engulfed the entire chamber. When the light faded, the entity was gone, leaving only silence in its wake. Breathing heavily, Hannah lowered the sphere, her legs threatening to buckle beneath her. Ryan rushed to her side, steadying her before she collapsed. "Did we win?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think so," Hannah replied, though uncertainty lingered in her tone. Exhausted but alive, they made their way back to the surface, the weight of what they had accomplished and witnessed, settling over them like a heavy blanket. Libra itself seemed different now, quieter somehow, as if the planet had exhaled after holding its breath for millennia. When they emerged into daylight, they found Commander Voss and his team waiting for them. His expression was unreadable, though his posture suggested tension. "You survived," he said simply, stepping forward. "For now." Hannah replied, her grip tightening on the sphere. But this isn't over. Not for us, and not for anyone else. Voss studied her for a long moment before nodding. Perhaps you're right. Perhaps humanity isn't ready for what you've uncovered. But mark my words, if this knowledge falls into the wrong hands, the consequences could be catastrophic. We'll take that risk, Ryan interjected, stepping protectively beside Hannah. Because keeping it hidden isn't an option either. Voss didn't argue. Instead, he signaled his team to stand down, watching silently as they prepared to leave. As their ship ascended into the sky, Hannah turned to Ryan. A mixture of relief and resolve etched across her face. This changes everything, she said softly. Yeah, Ryan agreed. For better or worse. Back on Earth, news of their discovery spread quickly, sparking debates and divisions across the globe. Some hailed Hannah and Ryan as heroes, pioneers who had unlocked humanity's true origins. Others condemned them as reckless fools who had unleashed untold dangers upon the world. Through it all, Hannah remained steadfast. She knew the truth about aliens and about humanity wasn't something to fear, but to embrace. Unity, not division, was the key to survival. And while the road ahead would undoubtedly be fraught with challenges, she believed they could rise to meet them. As she stood on a balcony overlooking the city, the sphere resting safely in her lab below, she allowed herself a rare moment of peace. The journey had been long and perilous, but it had also been worth it. For the first time in centuries, humanity had a chance to redefine itself, not as conquerors or destroyers, but as explorers united by shared purpose. And somewhere, deep within the cosmos, the remnants watched, hopeful that this time, the echoes would choose wisely. If you enjoyed this thrilling tale of discovery and destiny, don't forget to subscribe for more adventures beyond imagination.